Buddy, I'm Lauren Albandian with NORWAC. I'm the coordinator and the owner of NORWAC, the Northwest Astrological Conference. I am with my friend and colleague, Samuel Reynolds, today, and he is continuing on to lecture at NORWAC. You've been lecturing at NORWAC for
I want to say 5 years. Yeah.
six?
Almost. Yeah. I guess this will be the sixth one.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're streaming live, right?
I am streaming live.
Okay. We're live.
I am.
Okay.
It is going live right now. It's not on YouTube, but it is, excuse me, on Facebook, but it is YouTube Live. It is happening right now. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's all happening. So let me just give a little introduction for Sam. He is an ESAR cap, which means that's a level of certification from ESAR.
Correct.
He is a former skeptic and had a life-changing visit to an astrologer. That's an actual story I'd like to hear sometime, not right now. How you went from skeptic to actually seeing an astrologer, how you made that leap. But I think that's a story for another time. And so has spent the last 30 years doing charts and studying astrology. He currently serves on the board of directors for ESAR, the International Society for Astrological Research, and the International Academy of Astrology. He's also a co-founder of the International Society of Black Astrologers and a faculty member of the International Academy of Astrology. He's written for multiple print and online outlets, including ebony.com, horoscope.com, tarot.com, and the New York Magazine. And his website is unlockastrology.com. So you can find more information about him there. And then for NORWAC, you can go to norwac.net. The conference is happening Memorial Day weekend, our Memorial Day weekend here in the States. That will be at the end of May. We have some pre-conference workshop events starting on May 27th, Thursday, and then Friday morning, the 28th. We go over afternoon of Friday over the weekend doing lectures. And then we have Monday post-conference events as well that you can add. And the pre and post-conference events are events that you can add to your regular workshop, or you can attend them separately without attending the conference itself. It is your choice. So it's a little bit more expensive to do it without the conference. But again, if you want to come see Sam for his post-conference workshop, you can do that. So let me just give you a rundown of what he's doing. He's doing Friday the 28th in the afternoon here in Seattle, called Making Astrology Your Business. And that's Pacific Daylight Time. You would adjust for your own time frame, your own time zone, and you can go to norwac.net and look at the schedule and find that information. So Making Astrology Your Business, which I think is really important in this day and age, especially coming from someone who has a very successful practice. And I think getting that kind of advice is worth your time. On Sunday, May 30th, he'll be doing a keynote called Our Crosses to Bear, the Cardinal, Fixed and Mutable Cross, and that is for everyone to attend that is attending the conference. What I'd really like for Sam to do is tell us a bit more about his Monday, May 31st workshop, and that goes from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and that's called Unleashing Your Daemon. First of all, what's a daemon?
So the daemon is a tutelary spirit that classically is believed to incarnate with you. And most people recognize the term daemon with its Latinized version, which is genius, right? So the classic idea was that it wasn't so much that you were a genius, especially by virtue of a quote unquote high IQ. It was that you had genius, that you were in communion with your genius. And so someone who was said to be genius was in communion with their genius. So the nature of this workshop is really to talk about the long history of how astrologers have talked about the idea of the genius, the idea of the daemon in relation to astrology, and then also giving people some guidelines, some ideas on how they can be in touch with theirs.
So what is it about being in touch with your daemon, your genius? What does it do for me if I'm in touch with that?
Well, one, it helps you cement your sense of purpose, like why are you here? And to think about how you're in alignment with it. As I feel in touch with my daemon, it gives me a sense of clarity, not just in terms of working as an astrologer, but also in terms of what feels right for me. Um, Socrates is said to have been in touch with his daemon, right? In terms of like leading him. Now you might say like, well, did it tell him to drink that hemlock? Maybe not, right? But I think going along the path to be fearless, even in the face of circumstances, is to recognize that you have a guiding spirit with you. Now, in the Christian tradition, we talk about that under one general aegis as the Holy Spirit, as the comforter. But one of the things that permeates different traditions, including the pre-Christian tradition that comes from Rome and Greek culture, was that you had a spirit individually for you that's guiding you along toward fulfilling your particular lot in life and what's meant for you. So being in touch with that, and especially as an astrologer, it gives you a sense of, to fill in the blanks, to get clarity on things as you're trying to guide someone else, or get clarity even related to something with astrology. So one particular astrologer that I think of who never named himself as having been in touch with a daemon, but close to it, is William Lilly. Because when you read Christian astrology and you kind of read the rules and everything set up with horary, you realize that Lilly sometimes either broke the rules, right, his own rules, or he did work that filled in the blanks related to that. That's the guidance of your daemon. That's the guidance of like, well, when do I do that? Why do I do that? How does that work? Yeah. So that's one particular set of examples I might give in terms of the purpose for it.
So from an astrological point of view, is it something that you're either getting from the chart, or then getting in touch with the daemon to relate it to the chart?
It would be using your chart almost in a certain idea, a certain way, a ritualistic sensibility.
Okay.
Right? To get in touch with your daemon. There's a debate, a Neoplatonic debate, about whether you could use a chart to figure out your daemon. So that's one thing that we're going to talk about in the workshop.
Oh, good. Good.
Right? There is a particular set of steps that you could do. And then there's someone like Iamblichus who says like, no, you can't do that. Right? So which is it? So I'm coming to a meeting ground where I say like, I'm going to show you this path, but there's also someone who says that there's a different way, or way that you can't just do it through the chart. And I think there's a middle ground.
Okay.
So my plan is to help introduce and talk people through that middle ground, so that it's not just about what's in the chart or a particular calculation.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about your keynote, because I find it interesting. Our cross is to bear, the cardinal fixed mutable cross. And you write up, you say it's a keynote address to reflect on how we can better understand ourselves and our roles in society by deep consideration of three key modalities, cardinal, fixed, mutable, on the angles of our chart. So what if somebody doesn't have, I mean, they're going to have one of those modalities on their angles, of
They may
course,
have
and they
mixed.
can have, or they can have a mixed if you're not using whole sign houses, right? So then what is that really about? Our roles in
I will tell
society.
you, yeah, it's actually very, very simple. I'm drawing a good measure of my inspiration from my years-long study, and this may surprise some people considering what I do now, from esoteric astrology, right? So Alice Bailey talked about the three crosses related to the cardinal, mutable, and fixed, and what that means. And I think about that, for instance, whenever I have clients who are more on the mutable cross, I always say that you signed up for the experiential course, right? In terms of you wanted to have a sample of this and that. And so like, if you are mad at yourself because, well, Sue Ann knew what she wanted to be when she was 6, and here I am at 46 and I have no idea. That's okay, right? Maybe Sue Ann was operating more from the cardinal cross, but for you, the mutable cross, like, well, you have to synthesize, drawing in from multiple levels of experience in order to kind of go along a more unique path, or a path that you walk along multiple paths in order to figure out where you are. So it's coming to situate an understanding of these different paths, not toward discipleship as Alice Bailey talks about, perhaps, but more so toward a greater sense of feeling like you're walking along your life, your path.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. I'm wondering, maybe we should, I was thinking maybe we talk scholarships for a few minutes, or maybe we should just save that for another time.
Well, we can talk about it for a few minutes, especially since we're live. So one of the things that you and I have been doing now for, I guess this is going to be our 6th year, is organizing and bringing together the Diversity Scholarship, which we could call the Diversity Scholarship Fellowship. And why we call it the fellowship is that, I guess after the 2nd year, we became keenly aware that the people who go through our scholarship process and go through the scholarship, they seem to be on the fast track or a different track related to accelerating and developing their careers in astrology. And that's profound. I don't think there's another program in the astrological community that's like that. We've had some big names or people who are growing in terms of their status, like Colin Bettle, like Mecca Woods, like Janelle Belgrave, Tracy Rogers, just from last year, who've gone through this chartreuse.
There are so many to name. Kira Taborn.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all just up and away.
Right. They definitely seem to be operating along Alexis Young. Yeah. They seem to operate along a different trajectory than before they came to NORWAC. And so, I think it's an important thing. Some people may be concerned, like, oh, is this going to be like more, kind of having to pimp, a particular story related to my financial wherewithal, whatever. No, we're not asking for your IRS statements. We're not asking for you to talk about any particular trauma from when you were 6 years old. We just want to know, in order to be able to allot the money, who needs it, and perhaps a little bit why. When I say why, we don't have to go into like the story of like, okay, then I had this, but just to have a context for what's your financial lot, because you could easily be like a trust funder. I don't feel like spending my money. Let me apply for this, So we just want to make sure that the people who need this are getting it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're really interested in how people are engaged or looking to be engaged in the astrological community, in the astrological world, there's just so many places and so many ways that people can engage. And we're looking for people who want to be, right? Just want to be and are looking to be part of this thing called the astrology community.
Correct.
And therefore increasing the diversity. I mean, that's our goal.
We should probably say a word about that. Yeah.
Not just to increase the diversity at NORWAC, which we're doing, but by extension of that, the ripples out into the community by increasing the diversity of the community.
None of these people that we talked about have stayed localized to NORWAC, right? What happens is that they become instrumental and involved in the community. Like I mentioned, Alexis Young. Alexis has also now become involved in the International Academy of Astrology, which is the oldest online school for astrology in the world, and also in terms of the International Society for Astrological Research through ESAR. So that's yet another person who's integrated into the mix. And when I say integrated, meaning part of the operations of these organizations. So I think it's bigger than that. And we're talking about levels of diversity which relate to race, gender, class, gender orientation, sexual orientation, also in terms of, ability and all the full spectrum that is often absent. I just kind of came across a blog post where I talked about how when I first went to NORWAC, I might have been one of two, or Black people who were there, right? And then what's happened is now you can't count on two hands the number of people of color who were there. No. And that's especially true when we were virtual. didn't even fully know, but I know that there was a large section of people of color there.
Absolutely.
And also speaking. That's also important. I think I was that particular year, the only Black person speaking. But now, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there is a conference that has as many people of color speaking as NORWAC. So, I mean, that's another way.
Don't know for sure, but it seems as I look around that NORWAC has by far more, and we will continue to increase our numbers as astrologers coming out of the diversity scholarship, and not even necessarily from the diversity scholarship, elevate themselves, refine their skills, refine their lecturing ability. And by the way, for years, even before, NORWAC invited young astrologers who didn't have their game together, their lecture game together, right? And so they got a chance to dip their toe in the water and deal with the worry and the nerves and get that out there and launch themselves. Chris Brennan started at NORWAC, did his first lecture. There were other Kepler students who did first-time lectures at NORWAC. So, you know, it's been a long history for NORWAC. So you don't have to have your game polished to lecture at NORWAC, but we're looking for people who want to be engaged and are out there in the world and doing work in the astrological community in some way.
Correct.
All right. So I'm glad we were able to make time to discuss that, Mr. Reynolds. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate you as well.
It's a mutual appreciation moment.
A society. That's right. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, at NORWAC last year, you know, in terms of the work we've been doing, but you took the initiative in reaching out to me, and then how we're doing this work together. So it's phenomenal. And then how NORWAC has gone, you know, and grown from just being, as some would call it, a regional conference, to being bigger than even some orgs conferences. So it's a great thing. So kudos to you and your family.
Well, thank you. And thank you. And thank you. And thank you for so many things.